crypto today. Why don't we start there? Because we have some headlines, Julie Hyman. Bitcoin jumping to 50,000 for the first time in more than 2 years. We all remember, of course, 2022 and that nasty plunge. Lots of questions at that point, Julie, about the asset, the future of the asset. You had crypto fans on TV seeming kind of dazed and confused. But now Bitcoin has been on the move. It has tripled since the start of last year. Of course, listen, it's still well below that all-time high, which is around 69,000. But rallying back here, in part, of course, due to something we've talked a lot about, which is the approval of these new spot Bitcoin ETFs and the bet some are making that, yes, these new products over time are going to drive greater mainstream adoption.
And initially, of course, after we finally got the approval and the beginning of trading for those ETFs, we saw a little bit of a pullback in Bitcoin, which some who watch the industry closely had predicted would happen to sort of sell the news event. Now, CoinDesk, the publication that follows crypto very closely, says we're back at the FOMO stage of Bitcoin here, pointing out, as you did, that we saw that peak of 69,000, but then the low at the end of 2022 was 16. So obviously, we've come back quite a bit from that level, and last year was kind of a slow rally, if you will. There's one analyst out there that, again, CoinDesk is quoting today from CryptoQuant, that we could see Bitcoin touch $112,000 this year, and they're looking specifically at the inflows into those spot Bitcoin funds, and if that momentum continues, that's at least the implication in that one forecast.
Yeah, and also, not to get too geeky, but people are also talking about that so-called Bitcoin halving, which you expect in April, which sort of refers to this process of curbing the supply of new tokens. So some expect, hey, as we get closer to that, is that another catalyst? Does chatter start bringing that up as well?
Right. When we look at the spot Bitcoin ETFs in terms of the net inflows into those, according to Bloomberg Intelligence data, $2.8 billion is what we're talking about. And that's even with some pretty big outflows of more than $6 billion from the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. That's because, again, not to get too wonky here, but basically before these were approved, many people held that GBTC. Then when the others got approved, they moved their money over because we saw the discount collapse between GBTC and the underlying price of Bitcoin. So we saw some funds move their money to some of the other spot Bitcoin ETFs. All of that said, again, still net inflows into those spot Bitcoin ETFs.
Yeah, and it was interesting because the reports I saw too said that maybe you were seeing some indication that the outflows from the Grayscale fund could be maybe losing some steam here as well. So that was part of it too.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens next. And we're going to talk about Bitcoin a little bit more a little bit later in the show.